Nowadays, cars are one of the most stressful interests you can have. Prices for everything are up, nice versions of most older cars are nearly gone, and certain idiots are making non-car people look at us sideways. Since times are so stressful, there should be a way to make sure that you're on the right track in your car journey. And I feel like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the best way to lay out each step of being a car person. If you think I sound a bit like your high school health teacher, there's a reason for that. This was pretty much the only part of health that I wasn't asleep for. So I'm going to use the hierarchy to break down most car people's basic needs and how to evolve and thrive in the car community. And since us car people sometimes get a bit lost in the outside world, I even brought in one of my normal friends to discuss a few key points. Now, let's break down the first step in becoming the best car person you can be. In the original hierarchy, the first step represents stuff that is essential for human survival. You know, silly stuff like food, clothing, and sleep. Now, those are all good and dandy, but most car people go without some or even all of those things because of the crusty 240SX drift build they've had disassembled in the side yard since they were 17. However, there are a few basic things that are necessary to being a car person. Of course, you need an interest in cars to be a car person, but beyond that, I feel like the first basic need for a car person is information. Usually that involves some sort of media, and nowadays that usually means social media. And while social media seems like it really would fit closer with belonging as opposed to physiological needs, there is a reason I put it at the base of the pyramid. And I can confidently say that if car people don't constantly have an IV drip of car content, they'll shrivel up into a lifeless husk. And jokes aside, car media is vital for sustaining interest in the hobby because it introduces new people to new information and new parts of the culture. And if that interest is not constantly sustained with that imaginary IV drip, it will stagnate or go away. And by that logic, if it wasn't for automotive media, there wouldn't be very many car people. Even if people were introduced to cars through someone they know, the media plays a vital role in stimulating that interest. People scroll on TikTok or read a magazine and find stuff that they like. The more a car person knows about cars, the more likely they are to pursue that interest and maybe justify a possibly ill-advised purchase. Which, coincidentally, has a bit to do with the next step on my hierarchy. Now, on the original hierarchy, step 2 concerns safety. However, car people are not necessarily the safest individuals out there. As a matter of fact, the second step in my car person hierarchy may often involve risking that safety. But again, I promise my logic will make sense in the end. After having read countless magazines and having watched hundreds of Jimmy Oaks videos, you may get a bit of an itch to work on a car. Since nobody's parents are about to let their teenager work on something that actually gets driven, most young enthusiasts turn to purchasing their own cars. And this is where the step deviates drastically from safety and security, at least in the traditional sense. Just about the least safe and secure thing you can do as a teen is buy a crusty 90s BMW that rattles in new and exciting ways every time it started and still somehow costs $4,000. But therein lies the beauty of this second step. By suffering and working on a car that probably should have been parted out before you were born, you will learn skills that will only help you on your journey as a car person. And those could end up providing a bit of safety if you suffer a breakdown on the side of the road, or maybe even security through a job as a welder or mechanic. And even though initially that crappy first project was dangerous and very expensive, it probably paid off in the end and resulted in new skills and confidence. Again, that may not necessarily mean safety or security, but by actually doing more than just the basics of consuming content, you're giving this crazy interest more of a footing and will be able to actually get your hands dirty. However, that is unlikely to sustain a strong interest in cars forever, especially if you're wrenching by yourself. So naturally, the next step focuses on finding love and belonging in the car community. Compared to the other two, this step will make a little bit more sense. After you've spent untold hours consuming car content and have even bought your own little rust bucket and have fixed it up enough for it to drive, you may be interested in leaving your garage. Instead of sitting around on the computer, the new car enthusiast may choose to take their car to some sort of gathering. Now, there are all sorts of car events. You could go to a takeover and risk your car, life, and dignity. If you are one of the aforementioned 3 Series owners, you could go to a grassroots drift event. Or in the unlikely event that this first car is not entirely junk and will not leak all over and maybe even looks halfway decent while sitting on a field, you could attend a car show. Now, I know there are a ton of events I'm leaving out, but these are more or less the most well-known and give you a pretty solid idea of how wide-ranging the car scene is. Of course, the reason that I put this under love and belonging is because car events are a great place to meet other car people. If a young car person takes their car to an event, or even just attends some sort of car event, they're likely to meet and talk to similar people. As far as common ground goes, it doesn't get much more common than a ton of people who are willing to get up at 5 a.m., go to some random parking lot, drink stomach-churningly bad coffee, and look at a bunch of shiny cars. But you may ask, Mr. Fast, what if a few of my friends are not car people? What if they think I'm a lunatic because of all my clothes are stained with oil from my 3 Series? Well, honestly, I have no clue what to say. But I have a very close friend that is not remotely interested in cars, and therefore can maybe give some valuable insight into finding belonging amongst normal civilians.
Okay, let's break it down. Talking to mentally stable people, such as myself, can be a little nerve-wracking at first. But it's actually quite easy to convert intellectuals into car people if you get brave enough to approach them. Unlike the well-known species, females, we do not lash out if approached. We actually have a lot in common with you hooligans. I'll just use myself as an example. I too have explored the limitations of that funny little red needle on this geometry dashboard thing. And I do indeed average 55 miles an hour in school zone areas. Use this to your advantage when attempting to communicate with non-car people. Past recognizing your existing similarities with us, there is only one more step for converting us to car people, and that would be to start small and present them with fascinating facts about their own car. By doing this, you attach them to the car community on a very personal level and make them feel like they fit in. You can get very personal with this. For example, I, who drive a Hyundai Curve, am informed constantly by Mr. Fast here that I need to slow down because my car sounds like a middle school band rehearsal. Because I am constantly presented with an assortment of factoids about my own car, I feel more welcomed in the car community. Be sure to follow this process as closely as possible with your non-car friends, so that they feel more connected with the car community. Who knows, they might even descend the IQ ladder themselves and join you as a car enthusiast in this very wholesome community.
Thank you, Adamus, for that interesting take on fitting in with non-car people. Now that you are getting out and about and finding a group of like-minded car people, you may want more. And that is where this next step comes in. So now, our young car enthusiast has grown up a bit. They may have knowledge, a car, and maybe even a couple friends in the car scene. But if anyone works on their car, they will inevitably get an itch to modify it. This is where esteem comes in. If they are regularly attending car shows, or really any other type of event, they will start to itch to modify their existing car. And obviously, there are a few logical paths that you could follow. The first one is the least painful, at least when it comes to your finances. That would be to just acknowledge your car for what it is and go on with your life. But as car people, we don't really like saving money for silly things like retirement. And all it takes is a little window shopping before that shiny new exhaust or set of wheels starts whispering in your ear. Hey, I know you just got paid. I know those little pricks at the Cars and Coffee have been dissing your whack-ass fake TE37s. So how about you put those little numbers on the back of your credit card into your computer and buy me already? And before you know it, you got $5,500 worth of new parts coming for your rusty E46, and you're gonna have to survive off the raisin and ice cube diet. But there really is something to be said for modifying your car. It offers a level of self-expression that can help your self-esteem as long as it's done somewhat responsibly. Part of that esteem tier of Maslow's hierarchy also includes respect and recognition. And if a build is cool enough, it can most definitely bring the owner or builder some respect and recognition. I will also say that there are countless ways to gain respect and recognition in the car community, and each one could be a step to self-actualization. So with that, it's time for the final step in the car person hierarchy. Self-actualization is the final step on Maslow's hierarchy. It could apply to any number of things, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to claim it represents achieving one's fullest potential. Now, that definition means that someone could chase self-actualization for eternity, but again, for simplicity's sake, we will more or less limit it to a few separate pursuits. Now, if you rewind about 30 seconds, you'll remember me talking about gain respect and recognition from modifying your car. In order to realize your full artistic potential in any of these pursuits, you need to go full-time. For example, I feel like the first step for self-actualization in regards to content creation is being monetized on YouTube or whatever platform you use. Earning money is going to make it a whole lot easier to justify the amount of time you're going to have to invest in order to achieve your fullest potential. When it comes to building cars, it's somewhat similar. The first step towards self-actualization is finding a way to make the pursuit a bit less likely to result in your bank account balance being a number that preschoolers could count to. Whether that involves opening a shop shop, marrying into royalty, or creating content that revolves around building cars, it makes sense to figure out a way to finance your passion. Of course, there are a ton of other ways that you can self-actualize in the car scene. It really just depends on taking part of what you're passionate about and pursuing that to the fullest degree. In the end, this video was really just a fun way to kind of simultaneously inform some newer car people about the ways of the car scene while also poking a bit of fun at certain aspects of car culture. If you are watching this and you're just getting into cars, my honest advice is to just be yourself and have fun with it. And on that note, I hope that if you watched this much of the video that you enjoyed it and would consider liking and subscribing. Also, if you liked Old Adamus, go give him a sub as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.